The Wednesday show was a fantasy show. Last week it was an NFL playoff prediction show, and I think we're going to stick to that. Luke and I both did pretty well. We were both undefeated, right?
I think so.
Look at us. I mean, look at you. Forget
Right.
about the regular season. Get into the big dance. You're peaking at the right time. Now's when we go. Might
It's
as
like
well go the rest of the way.
right. It's like 2011 Yukon Huskies Kemba Walker just get in and go on a run.
Luke's doing a heat check this week. Once he crosses half
Mhm.
court, he's in range. So
Right.
watch out.
Right.
Meanwhile, Trevor picked the Eagles, so that's why he is no longer on the show. But tonight we will be going over those four games this weekend. We got some breakdowns of it. I do have the stats that I guess were successful last week. I will bring those up. I think they're less important for this week just because they don't take into last week's stats into account at all. A lot of rematches this week. It's a weird week of football, in my personal opinion. A lot of injuries, a lot of people coming back from injury. So it truly is a prediction show and a prediction week. We really can't base much off of anything, but I think let's just jump into it unless you have anything to go off or anything else you want to say about this
I had.
week, really.
It's not really about this week. I guess it's just a hypothetical question for you.
Sure.
Before we get into the games, is I don't know what I was listening to, some podcast, but whatever. But they had brought up the question: if would you rather have Tom Brady or Mac Jones for the remainder of their careers?
See, that's always tough.
Hmm.
I heard somebody else bring this up, I think, at the beginning of the season before we even knew what Mac Jones was. I think I would rather have Mac Jones, but man, it's closer than it probably should be.
Right, and it feels like Mac Jones, is with Belichick now. So I don't know if that hides, some of Mac Jones' deficiencies or enhances some things here and there. So it'd definitely be real interesting to see. I assume Mac Jones is going to stick around there once Belichick retires and moves on, and he gets Josh McDaniels or whatever.
Yeah, and obviously that game did not go the Patriots' way.
Mm-mm.
But I don't know about you. I thought Mac Jones played well, to be
Yeah,
completely honest.
I thought he was the best player in a bad game for the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much you can take away positive from that game, but
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. He made some damn good throws. That Micah Hyde interception wasn't on him.
Hmm.
There were some insane plays. Well, let's just jump into. There's only 2 days of football this week, Saturday, Sunday. We do not have that Monday game. 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. Top overall seed in action for both games Saturday. First one's the Bengals at the Titans. Derrick Henry yesterday, Tuesday, for those watching this after the fact, went through a padded practice. It was not full contact, but Vrabel made it pretty clear that he wanted to see Derrick Henry get hit, wanted to see how he would respond, and it seems to be all systems go for him Saturday. Uh, you know, I don't necessarily expect him to carry the ball 30 times like maybe a 100% Derrick Henry would. Quite honestly, like he could carry the ball 15 to 20 times, and I think that's more than enough. On the Bengals side, the big issue is they lost their defensive tackle, and Trey Hendrickson's beat up. So now you're taking a defensive line that was kind of weak against the run. You make them weaker against the run. And then, oh, by the way, here's Derrick Henry, fresh. Hasn't taken a hit since October 31st. And this doesn't seem good for the Bengals to me.
Yeah, I agree. And before diving into the Bengals, Derrick Henry coming back just feels like it could be a championship return for Tennessee. I don't know if you feel the same way,
I
but
do.
I totally agree with you because like that's Tennessee's identity, right? Is Mike Vrabel's big grit and grind guy. We're going to beat him on the ground. We're going to beat him with the pass rush. We're going to beat him stopping the run. Um, that's what Tennessee's good at. It helps them a lot that they have Julio Jones and AJ Brown on the outside for that offense. But to be honest, like you said, the Bengals, rush defense is battered up a little bit. Not the greatest. Like this feels like Derrick Henry, if he's 60 to 70% of what he is, this still feels like a 100-yard game for Derrick Henry, even on those 15 to 20 carries.
Yeah, I agree. Obviously, Man, this Titans defense have flip flopped between are they overrated or are they underrated the
Mm-hmm.
entire year? I think they might be a little bit overrated still, especially because they played in the AFC South. Like, I think their pass defense is worse than people are giving them credit for, especially because you look at the AFC South. You got Carson Wentz throwing the ball, you have Trevor Lawrence, then you have Davis Mills or whoever else was playing quarterback then. So I think those stats are inflated or deflated, whichever way you look at it a little bit. But still, the biggest matchup in this game for me is the Titans' defensive front versus the Bengals' offensive line. Obviously, I've been pretty public the entire year about that Bengals offensive line, how they messed up and they need an offensive lineman there. And I think it's going to show itself at this game. I think Titans are going to bring pressure a ton. And if the Titans are, if I was the Titans, if I win the coin toss, I want the ball. I want to score a
Mm-hmm.
touchdown right away because if they can set the tone and then blitz the rest of the entire game and have the Bengals chase points, this could be another ugly playoff game, which we saw a lot of last weekend.
Agreed. And then on the Bengals side of the ball, it worries me that obviously the strength of this offense is the passing game, right? Even though they have, Joe Mixon, who's probably top 7 running back in the league.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, with not the great coaching there, a bunch of young players. If they go down, they're just going to resort to what they're good at, and that's going to be passing. So,
Yeah.
I do agree with you that Titans defense, maybe is a little inflated. Their pass defense, whatever. I don't know. I just like I said, this feels like ground and pound for the Titans, and then Bengals going to make up points by passing and just almost eliminate the run game altogether.
And they've been super prone to doing that towards the past back half of the season, really. Joe Mixon hasn't done shit in the rushing game the back half of the season. Part of it's the offensive line, but part of it is they panic, they get away from the running game, and then they're lucky because Joe Burrow, I've talked about this on a different podcast. He might be a top 3 quarterback in the NFL for me. I really like him. I think he's
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable. I think he's unwaverable, if that's a word. Like, he's going to rise to this game. Like, there's no stage I think that's too big for him. I think you talked about it last week, saying that he has the it factor, and he absolutely does. I think they will go pass heavy. I don't even know if it's to their detriment, but I think they're going to put up points. Like, I think Joe Burrow's good enough to do it against anybody. I'm looking at the betting line right now. Titans are favored by 3.5. Over under is 47. Man, like, I could see this game going over, even if the Titans run the ball 40 times.
I think so.
Don't you?
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. Especially because, like I mentioned before, the Titans still have weapons on the outside. It's not like they are running the ball because they can only run the ball. Like they can throw the ball
right.
as well.
And looking at rushing numbers, one of the things that was weird to me was the rushing efficiency for the Titans didn't drop without Derrick Henry. So, like, and also you just watched Derrick Henry the entire first, I don't know, whatever it was, I think 7 or 8 games of the season. He's not super efficient running the football, and then fourth quarter he breaks off, a
Mhm.
bunch of really big plays. And I bring that up to say, yes, the Titans are going to run the ball a lot, but that doesn't make them a less explosive offense. Like, Derrick Henry can take one to the house at any point. I think Deontay Foreman can do that at absolutely any point as well. To your point, Julio is still Julio. He's definitely a slower Julio, but he's still Julio. AJ Brown's a freak. They got weapons all over. So they're just as explosive as the Bengals are, even though they play completely differently. And even if it turns into one team is grinding out the clock and the other team is passing, I don't think that limits the upside in scoring. I don't think they played each other this year. I want to check that really quick.
Do you think
Uh,
while you're checking, do you think that Derrick Henry sees the first carry for the Titans?
I think so. Don't
Yeah,
you? It just seems like it
you have
can.
to, right? Just get them out right there right away, and let them pummel maybe the first 2 plays that Tennessee has on offense, and see what third down or first down, whatever what that brings.
In some sports books, you'll be able to see a prop like, what will the Titans' first play be? Like, it might be run, might be pass, whatever. If you can see that prop, to your point, absolutely, I think hammer the run. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
the odds won't be super favorable, but I think you just eat that. I don't think it matters.
Right.
But yeah, like I said, 3.5. To me, this is a Titans win, Titans cover game.
That's
What
what I'm
about you?
thinking. Those are my same thoughts. Although I love Joe Burrow and he's like absolutely perfect for Cincinnati, who's sports teams. I guess sports culture isn't great. He's a guy that the city can kind of rally around. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if he can do it. I mean, this is his second playoff game. This Bengals are coming off an emotional win. I mean, this may be a spot for a letdown for them, which is not a bad thing for the Bengals, who are looking to compete for many years now with Joe Burrow. But I agree with you. I think the better team wins here, and Titans. I don't want to say take it handily, but I'm thinking probably 10 points around there.
Yeah, I think so too. Going to the model that I talked about last week, I took the teams out, obviously, that were eliminated, so that updates the rankings a little bit, which was kind of interesting. But going over the last three rankings, which is kind of what I made my picks off of, and it was correct for every game except for Steelers Chiefs. But there was very obvious things that the model didn't measure, and that's quarterback play. And I would have taken Mahomes over, Roethlisberger 10 times out of 10. So I kind of throw that one out anyways. But going over the rankings for this week now with everyone out, the 49ers are the very clear top team. Then it goes Buffalo 2, Tennessee, and the Rams are tied for 3. Tampa is next, Kansas City, Green Bay, and then a distant Cincinnati Bengals are last. So it seems even the model says, yeah, take Tennessee, and I'm just going to trust it.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure. Just to you had mentioned the Steelers there for a second. I read this on Twitter the other day. Do you know the Steelers had the most points out of the teams who lost last week?
yeah.
That's wild.
I mean, thanks TJ Watt.
You're right.
That game turned quickly. I'm like, oh my god, the Steelers are going to do it.
Hmm.
No, they're not. They're absolutely not.
It doesn't help when you punt like 7 times in the first quarter.
Man, that offense is bad from top to bottom.
Hmm.
They have so much to figure out. It's insane. Ugh.
How long?
Anyway,
So I'm sorry. Just
no, you're good.
Steelers. One more here. With Ben, moving on. How long is Tomlin staying there? Because
As
he's been
long as
there.
he wants
He's
to.
been there forever.
Yeah. Um, I think ownership won't move on from him very quickly. Um, I'm a massive Tomlin fan, so I'm biased a little bit, but I think he does stay there as long as he wants to. He would have to miss the playoffs maybe like 3 times in a row, I think, for him to get fired. And he somehow didn't do that this year. So,
Yeah. Right.
which is insane.
Yeah, and just to branch off of that real quick, you said Tomlin can probably stay there as long as he wants. What other coaches in the NFL can do that? Belichick, Harbaugh, maybe.
Harbaugh, probably Belichick, Andy Reid, I would think.
That's got to be
That
pretty close
might,
to it.
yeah, that has to be it. I was thinking Joe Judge for a second, but then they got rid of him. I don't know. Yeah, probably that's about it. We'll see about Pete Carroll.
I was gonna say
One more bad
it was looking like Pete
year.
Carroll for a little bit the last couple of years, but with how bad they were this year and not great they were last year.
Trevor decides to show his face. But it'll be interesting to see Seattle. Like, they still could move on from him,
Yeah,
which, I mean, it's going to be to the point someone's going to hire a head coach and they're going to fire Pete Carroll or something. It's going to
right.
be
Trevor,
stupid.
I asked Zach. We were talking about Mike Tomlin, and Mike Tomlin said, he pretty much has a job for as long as he wants, can leave whatever. And I asked him how many other coaches in the NFL can have that have that say that they can stay as long as they want.
I'm only thinking of one.
We said what we say Zach Belichick, maybe Harbaugh,
And Andy Reid.
and Andy Reid.
Oh yeah, those two.
But yeah, there's not many. It's not a long list. It's a prestigious list. and they deserve it in my personal opinion. What's your pick for Bengals Titans, Trevor? We're just about to move on from that game.
Bengals.
Attaboy, starting the year or the week off like last week. 49ers Packers. 49ers in practice today, not organized really. So we don't know the status of Nick Bosa. And that's obviously a massive, massive injury to talk about. He's concussed, so there really isn't a true timeline. You can't measure any of this. From what I've heard, he's still in concussion protocol. But yeah, I don't know. I think the Saturday game really does hurt him. I think if the game was Sunday, you'd feel a little bit more optimistic. But just because I personally haven't heard anything about him getting out, it does kind of make me a little bit nervous that he could miss this game. I don't know. But I think that's the biggest thing there. I rewatched the first matchup between the teams earlier this season a couple hours ago, and my big takeaway was how neither of these teams are anything like they were. Like Deebo Samuel obviously didn't line up in the backfield once. Brandon Ayuk was still going through his funk. Robert Tonyan was out there wide open down the middle. Jair Alexander had that insane interception. Like, there's so many things. I'm like, oh, cool. Like, I forgot that Alexander was still playing on the team in week 3. I thought he was out already. So, how much stock do you guys put into that week? I think it was week 3 matchup.
I mean, you got to put a little into it, right? Because you got to imagine that, all offseason they make a plan for what offense they're going and what defense they're going to run. I mean, they're still probably going to run similar schemes, obviously alternate here and there from playing each other and, adding different players, whatever like that. But you're right, Zach. There's so much different stuff that went on. The two constants there are the two quarterbacks that both played in that game. I don't know how this game's going to be much different than that one. I don't see this being, crazy, like, what are we watching right now, anything like that. I think, that was a pretty good glimpse to the future, maybe with some added bonuses for this week.
For me, I put a lot of stock into it, but in a kind of roundabout way. I put a lot of stock into this game, kind of going into prediction. The Packers barely snuck away with a win. Granted, it was in San Francisco, Santa Clara, whatever you want to call it. With Jimmy G playing horrible, like you said, Deebo Samuel wasn't in the backfield. He wasn't utilized as much as he should be. Tonyan was out there. Alexander was 100%. All this stuff happened, and the Packers barely snuck away with a win. So I'm going to take that. What do we know from that? Well, 49ers offense has gotten a hell of a lot better. Elijah Mitchell looks good. It's a cold game, so it's going to hurt like a son of a bitch to tackle. So that's going to help the run game, which helps San Francisco. And the Packers have some guys coming back that, while are healthy, I wonder how many snaps they're able to play, what they're truly at, even though they say 100%. So I look at this and I think this is warning signs galore for if you're a Packer fan.
Rewatching that first game, like, I need to watch it again because I don't know how the Packers gave up that lead. It was like in a blank. Like, they were up 17-0. There was a big kickoff return. There was, they got the touchdown, the very final seconds with the Trey Lance touchdown going into the half, and then everything changed from there. 49ers aren't going to look the same anywhere. Like, defensively, they played man, and they showed everything pre-snap. I don't think they do either of those two things in this game. Offensively, they were trying to make Trey Sermon a thing in that game, and it did not become a thing. Like, there's nothing the same about the 49ers. And I went back and listened to Lombardi's sweep just because I wanted to see what we said. Trevor wasn't on the show, so it was kind of similar to the start of this one. But we were saying, like, the 49ers feel like a team that they're going to figure it out and be scary at the end of the year. I'm like, oh, imagine that. Like, they're very scary. But, man, everything says 49ers in this game. And I really don't think they're going to win. I don't think the cold benefits them. They're not a power team. They're a finesse team. They're a speed team. if Deebo Samuel doesn't look as athletic because it's cold and he can't move as fast, like what is he as a running back? Like he's then he's Cordero Patterson probably, but that doesn't scare me. So, man, I'm less afraid about that. Packers figured out Nick Bosa. They kind of took him out of the plays the first time around. He manhandled Nijman, but Aaron Rodgers just went around him, and now there's David Bakhtiari and probably Billy Turner. Aaron Rodgers had zero issue picking on their cornerbacks. So, man, I forgot to say Packers are favored by 6 over under 46.5. That betting line I think is off for me. I think it's a touchdown favorite for the Packers is too much. But man, brain says 49ers, gut says Packers for me. What's your thoughts, Luke?
See, I think I'm all in on the Packers here. At some point, I guess you can run the ball the whole game, but at some point Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have to throw the ball. He's got a sprained shoulder, which is great. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo he'll take, everything that the defense gives him, right? He'll throw underneath all game. So in order for the Packers to win this game, and we'll break this down in our next show, but to me, in order for them to win this game is you can't give them the underneath stuff. You have to make Jimmy Garoppolo beat you, and that only starts by stacking the box to start the game to kill that run game right away, which of course is going to be tough. I agree with you guys, but I don't see a chance in hell that this defense can stop Aaron Rodgers in the cold, who's been there for 15 years now. The dude knows how to play football. Randall Cobb, I think, is coming back. That's a huge. It opens up the middle so much for Rodgers to, hit Cobb over the middle, hit Devontae deep. It opens up the run game. It opens up everything, and that's what I think is a very underrated part of this game is Randall Cobb coming back. Also, something else to watch for is both these kickers are incredible in the playoffs. Robbie Gould hasn't missed a field goal, and Crosby's like 95% in his playoff history.
Have either of you guys watched the show Parks and Rec?
Love that show.
A little bit.
Okay, so Ron's wife Tammy, how she always comes back and you have to snap her out of it. That's what I feel like I'm doing to you guys with the Packers. We know this team. We know how it works every year. Low expectations, right? We get to that peak. Packers are going to win it. You get to the top and they jump off a cliff right when they shouldn't. Everything here is saying Packers, but where have we seen this before, right? Like for me, I understand everything says Packers on paper, but I've seen this how many times before, and this is the perfect team, in my opinion, to beat the Packers and the 49ers. Jimmy G, does he need to pass? I mean, really, does he? Granted, a lot of difference from 2 years ago, but 2 years ago he threw, 8 passes, I think, all game, and they beat the piss out of us. So, granted, there are a lot of different things, but for me, for all the stuff that's on paper, I just can't get behind a Packer team against a run-heavy team with an average quarterback and a good defense because I've seen it too many times before.
Two things. One, everything on paper says 49ers, not Packers. And two, the divisional round's not the peak. I don't know where you are.
I'm saying
what's the last time we betted a divisional
not peak, but peak of oh yeah, we won the Super Bowl. After Wild Card Weekend, it was oh yeah, Packers for sure by $1 billion, and that's when they just fall off a cliff.
I don't know.
I understand what Zach is saying though. This 49ers team does not feel good enough to be in the NFC Championship.
I'm
not saying that either. I'm not saying that 49ers are good. Their defense is not. I'm not afraid of their defensive coordinator at all. He might be. I'm not going to say that. He's not very good. And I don't know why he goes into week 3 and shows everything to Aaron Rodgers pre-snap and plays man coverage on Devontae Adams. It's hey, we're better than you. Try to beat our matchup. And then Rodgers is fine. And then he does it every fucking play. That tells me he has no idea what he's doing. And he did it last week against the Cowboys too. And they almost lost because of it. Their defensive coordinator sucks. He's no good. Their secondary is not that good. They have Fred Warner, who's hobbled and small, by the way. So if it turns into a cold game, it's supposed to be a cold game, and we're talking about box versus box, line versus line, front versus front, That's where Fred Warner's the weakest, so that takes him out of it. Nick Bosa, if he's 90%, I don't trust him against David Bakhtiari. Billy Turner sucks, but we know that, so you can put a tight end over there. I don't know. I don't think the Packers cover, but I think the Packers are going to win this game. Shouting up the kickers, I think, is a good thing. By the way, that Mason Crosby performance in Week 3 was huge too. People forget about that, and that's another thing. Listening back to Lombardi's tweet, I was saying like that field goal at the end of the game was almost blocked. Like that's gonna happen. I think it was the next week, blocked field goal, and everyone's like, "What's going on?" But I don't know. I'm gonna go with Packers win this game. Aaron Rodgers doesn't lose these cold games. He doesn't lose them. Like it's gonna get warmer the week after that, and he'll lose that one. He doesn't lose cold games like this.
How cold is it against Tampa Bay? It wasn't very cold, was it?
It was like 30 something.
I was in Arizona.
That doesn't answer the question of whether it was cold or not, but okay.
Well, no, I live here, so I would know if it was cold. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. So you
sure,
say, I don't
in a
know.
roundabout way.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's a weird way of saying it, but go on.
But so I'm totally, like I said, I'm 100% on the Packers. I just think this offense is too good. I think all the pieces, are there. Obviously, Tanya's not there, but Cobb fills that spot. I do think I'm really thinking Packers by double digits, and I'll throw it up to 2 touchdowns just to make it a little spicy here.
I think it's the 49ers. I already bet on their money line actually too, like just straight up the money line. I just gotta go 49ers. Like the Bucks show us that every year. The Brewers, the Badgers, pick a Wisconsin sports team. They always do the same cycle over and over again. I think this is where that cycle of falling off starts for the Packers against the 49ers. They should beat the 49ers. I don't think they do. I don't think they can stop the run.
Everyone was saying the same thing before the Bucks played the Heat last year in the playoffs too, Trevor.
Sorry. Fucking people from a job are incompetent.
That is
anything
true,
else?
but Bryn Forbes decided to score more than Jimmy Butler. So I think that's a little more of a fluke in there. And then what happened round 2? Oh, Kyrie and James Harden got hurt. And then round 3, Trae Young got hurt.
It's okay.
And then the last round, Phoenix just sucks. So I guess that's one, but
you don't apologize for wins.
I do.
I don't.
Anything else to say about this game?
No.
Okay, let's move to Sunday. Rams versus Buccaneers. Big injury in this game's Tristan Wirfs, right tackle, best right tackle in football. If he doesn't play, he was clearly hobbled. Can go back into the game last week. If he doesn't play, Von Miller is going to line up there. You'll see Aaron Donald line up there. You'll see Leonard Floyd line up there. Titans are going to be not Titans. Buccaneers are going to be in a lot of issues if he doesn't play. They will need to use Rob Gronkowski as a blocker.
Mm-hmm.
And if you use Rob Gronkowski as a blocker with this receiving core, I think that's a big issue. Currently, Buccaneers are favored by 3 at home, over under 48.5. I'm going to look up the ref assignment really quick, but because I think that's going to come to play. But on paper, I like the Rams. I really do. I like the Rams on road in this game. But yeah, what's your thoughts?
I do too. I like the Rams. I do think that the Rams offense looked all right against the Cardinals. To see, Odell Beckham get involved right away is huge for the Rams. Build his confidence a little bit. That was his first playoff touchdown, I think I heard. So to get him involved, they had him throwing the ball, which is huge for a guy who's kind of in and out of it. Obviously, you guys know that I like Odell, but Cooper Kupp wasn't involved till the second half, and he still. So if they can get both those guys clicking again, I think with how great Tampa Bay's defense is, I do think that the Rams can run off of that a little bit and get something going on offense. And Zach, I totally agree. Like this is everyone said Von Miller's career game was the Super Bowl. This may be up there with if Tristan Wirfs is out and he's taking that right side.
For me, I guess I just woke up and chose violence. I'm going Buccaneers. I don't think they're that good of a team. I don't think the Rams are that good either. But you know, if it's a close game, it's going to go to Brady because he's either going to get the call or they're going to miss something or whatever. Like, that's just how it works. And I think it's a close game. I think Stafford makes one too many mistakes. I think the Buccaneers do just enough to get back on the skin of their teeth. I think this is one of those classic games where Brady does the bare minimum. Everybody else steps up and everybody says he's the GOAT again. It just feels like one of those games for me. Um, and they have home field. I don't think that really matters since the Rams have no fans. But I won't trust Matthew Stafford in the playoffs till he plays somebody of substance.
Matthew Stafford's a dog. But Sean Hockley is going to be the head ref. Obviously, it's not his crew, so these stats kind of go out their window. They mix and mash them, which is stupid. But he called the second most penalty yards in the league this year. He didn't really call that much pass interference relative to the rest of his penalties. He called a shit ton of holding penalties. Average, roughing the passer, called some unsportsmanlike. So if they're going to call holding penalties, I don't think the Rams are smart enough to take advantage of that. I do believe the Buccaneers are. Obviously, if you talk about like what's the best unit in this entire game, I would argue it's the Buccaneers' run defense. And if you stop the run on a Sean McVay offense, he kind of panics and doesn't know what to do. So I do like the Buccaneers in this game. But, man, like, to your point, I don't think Tom Brady is going to light him up. Man, yeah, I would go Buccaneers, but I think this one's really close.
Because
It
of
might be the best game.
Yeah, because of Tristan Wirth being out, and you said Rob Gronkowski having to stay in and block. Do you think that means that Jalen Ramsey follows Mike Evans everywhere?
I don't think so. I think he'll have his fair share of snaps on him, but I could see Jalen Ramsey sort of just going rogue this game and just sort of floating the middle of the field a lot.
I want to see that bitch on bitch matchup. Ramsey on Mike Evans.
I don't know if I'd call Jalen Ramsey a bitch, but Mike Evans is for sure. Yeah. I mean, I kind of gave my prediction, I guess. I think we all kind of did. The spread, like I said, is 3 points, so field goal. I would side with the Buccaneers with that. Is this the second highest over-under? It is. I would go under for the points, to be completely honest, but I think the Buccaneers do cover.
See, I'm on the opposite of you. I think I like the Rams in the over.
I'm going to take the Buccaneers in the under.
Last game, people are calling it the true AFC Championship. Can't really blame them. Andy Reid says the Super Bowl is like a piece of chocolate cake. And you want to get that piece of chocolate cake, it's in front of you. Andy Reid's at an all-time high for me right now. Mm-hmm. He is saying the right things. He's doing the right things. You know he had a piece of chocolate cake directly off camera. He's just staring at it, looking at it during the interview. I love the Chiefs in this game. Chiefs are favored by 1.5, over-under highest of the weekend, 54.5. Bills are on an all-time high. Bills completely picked apart the Chiefs earlier this year. And, Josh Allen's going to be feeling himself. This passing game is going to be feeling themselves. That Bills defense feels like they were slighted. We're the top defense in the league according to scoring stats, which means nothing. Yet they had 0 Pro Bowlers, which I think is right. They had at least 1 All-Pro guy, maybe 2. But, man, honestly, if you had to ask me which defensive unit I like more, I think I like the Chiefs more in this game, to be completely honest. Just because they've been there, they've done that, and I've seen what the Bills do in big moments.
Just to add on to that, does this feel like a game where Josh Allen tries to do too much, which results in a harm to the Bills?
I just think he sees adversity. When he gets up with a 20-point cushion, he throws it a little bit harder. He feels a little bit taller. But once it's a close game and he feels pressure, he usually crumbles. So I just think he does the same thing.
Fair.
Both these teams are frauds, in my opinion, in their different ways. Like the Chiefs, they're a good team, right? Like on paper, like I'm not saying they're frauds. They haven't been able to convince me that they're a Super Bowl contending team yet in terms of consistency, especially seeing how they played against the Broncos. I mean, they almost lost that game. They needed a defensive play to win that game. And on the other hand, the Bills have Josh Allen and a defense that storms out of pressers because their feelings got hurt. Looking at you, Poyer, I think. I don't know which one's going to give. Yeah, him too. But we'll give him a little bit of credit. So I'm going to predict a tie in the first overtime. I don't know how it works, but this just feels to me kind of like the Chargers Raiders game to end the season. Like which team wants it less, and which team's going to give it to the other team? Because I don't think anybody's going to come out here gunning, shooting 40 points off the rip.
I don't know. Like, I think the over-under set pretty accurately. I could see it going under just because there's a couple fluke plays, but I think the offenses are going to be overall fine. I just think once it comes down to a big moment, who's going to make that moment, I just don't trust Josh Allen. I really don't. Like, he continues to make bad decisions. And last week, he played a perfect game. And you don't have very many perfect games. He made some bad throws, and Dawson Knox jumped a little bit higher than he normally does. I don't know. Maybe both coordinators for the Bills are getting interviewed for coaching jobs as well, which drives me crazy. I don't know how that's allowed, man. Like, I don't know how that's allowed while they're still going. Obviously, it's a Zoom interview now, and man, I don't know. I wouldn't allow it. Like, what are we doing? Obviously, the Packers have had their non-important passing coordinators and Nathaniel Hackett doing interviews as well. But like offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator doing interviews, you see that with the Buccaneers as well. If you're not fully focused for this game, I think it's tough. Like everything needs to be pristine this week. And Bieniemy's not getting fucking interviews, so fuck it. Like I'm gonna go with the Chiefs for this one.
It just, how does that make any sense, right? Like LaFleur said, I always want guys to grow. I never want guys to stay here. How hard is it to just say, hey, just like wait till we're done? Like they're not going to hire a coach if they really want you. They're not going to hire a coach by then anyways, usually. Like just wait. It's a week, 2 weeks, maybe 3 if we make the Super Bowl. I don't understand why the coordinators even accept it until later.
I don't know why the NFL does. Because obviously, like if you wait until after the Super Bowl, then you have another batch of news. Like the NFL is still relevant during all this coaching search and all these headlines and stuff like that. If you're mixing them in with this, it's just dumb from a media standpoint. And obviously, I'm sure they made the rule where you can talk right away because there was talks happening anyways. So why make it illegal if it's happening? That's my guess. But I don't know. It just seems really dumb to me. It's like if the teams in the Super Bowl had their players go to the Pro Bowl. Like they never have them go. Why is this any different?
I was gonna say it's a little different, but I think the point still stands. Like, could you imagine if like a Cinderella team was going on March Madness in the tournament, and like Texas didn't make it, and they fired the coach, they had a head opening job while the team's going for a run, and the coach is there trying to interview for the Texas job. Like, it just doesn't make sense to split up a team in the playoffs, even though obviously you're still going to be there. But just to shift your focus off of playoffs is wild.
Like you can enter any sport. MLB. Oh, the Red Sox bench coach is interviewing for the Seattle Mariners. Mm-hmm. No, like it makes no hockey. They might. I don't know. I don't pay attention to the playoffs, but
yeah,
NBA doesn't.
And obviously, college football would be the one people point to. Bowl season's less important for all the teams that are having their coaches switch anyway. But I mean, you see all the time random old coaches come back for 1 week because the coach left. You saw Stoops do it. We had it's weird. It feels wrong. I don't like it, but who am I? Who am I to say? Whatever. I'm just saying the Bills are going to lose as a result. I'm
That's
Zach Brunner. That's
Yep.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else to say about this Bills-Chiefs game?
This Chiefs offense feels like a lot of, screens, get Travis Kelce the ball in space, get Tyreek Hill the ball with a couple blockers ahead of him. I don't think Bills' defense is good enough to even come close to stopping that. So, Zach, I'm with you. Give me the Chiefs. I'm going to go double digits again. That's 4 games, double digits for me. Give me Chiefs. I think they're all blowouts this week.
Are these the worst playoffs we've had in recent history? Wildcard weekend sucked. Like, to your point, and if you didn't listen, go to the Flurry Sports Podcast Oopsie Datesy episode where Zach and Jake break it down. But, like, your point about the Bengals and Raiders was completely right. Like, I know Luke and I were talking about our Bucks podcast. We're like, oh, we want to watch football. I watched, like, 2 minutes of that Bengals game. I got bored. I watched 2 minutes of the Bills game. I got bored. Like, nothing was entertaining. And I don't think it was the 7 teams. It was just like, what are we doing? Do you guys think almost that's a part of that is because of that extra week? Or do you think that's just kind of irrelevant?
I think it's irrelevant, but I don't know. Like, it didn't feel like a longer season to me. Did it for you guys?
I mean, Zach, I remember when we talked on Meet the Guest podcast, we talked about this. This was before the season. Will football fatigue set in for some? And I think a lot of people who like love football, go to games, fantasy football, whatever. They're all into it. But the people who are Sundays don't work, they're staying at home. Usually they'll tune into a football game. You got to think that not that into it. You got to think that they got turned off a little bit, especially with the culmination of what happened last week with not many very exciting games.
For me, I got a little. I felt it a little bit in fantasy. Like, at least for me, the trade deadline felt late.
As soon as I lost my first game in a Pirate League, that's when I got football fatigue, and I think that was the first week.
It might have been. Here's a point I raised to ask you guys if you think this has anything to do with it. We added another week, so that just means another matchup against somebody. Looking at the wild card playoffs, 1, 2, 3, and 4, maybe 5 of the games were rematches. So
maybe that was it too.
Like, that has something, like, these teams know each other better. The better coach is going to scheme up better, and that's why maybe you saw, not saying Bill Belichick wasn't the better coach, but like you see sometimes some of these coaches out scheme the other one, and that's why it's a blowout, this reason, that reason. But maybe that's why it was less exciting football. I don't know.
I think one for me too is that Monday night game was dumb as hell. Like, I didn't like how you had basically the whole AFC picture done before the NFC. Like, I think that's one of the most fun things is flipping back and forth, like, oh, this means this, and like the craziness of it all. And they just took that away.
Yeah, and Zach, just to add to your point there, I know for basketball for sure, playing teams outside your conference, teams outside your division is so much more fun than playing teams inside your division. Like when we went down and played like Milwaukee teams, that was great just to see someone new, just to get new competition. And I do think that in the NFL, fans, if you're a Packer fan, you're likely watching what the Vikings, the Bears, the Lions. Throw in the Cowboys, the Seahawks, the same teams the Packers play every year. And that's where playoffs, kind of mix things up. You get teams that you don't usually see, you don't really play. And I think that does bring more fan interest to it as well.
It also, and I can't overstate this point enough, this was the first week of football we had without Dan Campbell this season. And everything was just significantly less exciting. Every game he's in is going to be a dogfight. It's going to be close. And like if you match Dan Campbell's Detroit Lions up against the Raiders, that's going to be an exciting game. I guarantee it. With the Patriots, it's going to be close. What?
I've solved the NFL. So you know how Hard Knocks works, but the Colts going to make the playoffs? What we do next year, 7 teams, perfect, but Dan Campbell has a 1-week special of Hard Knocks with the 1 seed in every conference. Find a way to make it work. Get us a Hard Knocks during the week so we can keep up on football. Keep loving Dan Campbell, and then we see his impact too.
So Zach, do you remember last year when Trevor and I only talked about Todd Gurley, and that's Dan Campbell's turned
Yeah.
into that.
Except
It
Dan
has.
Campbell's better, but
Disagree.
I mean, I would like to see the two do an Oklahoma drill because I know who I'm picking, but you never know.
Todd Gurley doesn't have a shirt.
Here's a real.
Or knees.
I was gonna say, Trevor, do you have a Dan Campbell jersey? Because I know you have a Todd Gurley jersey.
No, I do not. I didn't even
I've
know.
looked.
Are those even things? I don't think they are.
They are, and I've looked, and I've been. They were expensive. It was like $150. Oh man,
Why?
I really want one.
Why were his?
It's iconic.
$150?
It was a Lions one. That's why. Like
you have to
there's
go
a
to
time.
Okay,
You
if
have to
it
go
was
to
the
Lions
black one,
Pro
that would be
Shop.
sick though. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to go to the Lions Pro Shop and just build your own.
I might have to.
That's going to be a vlog we do. On the way back from the Fantasy Football
my
Expo,
God.
we stop at Ford Field and do it. It's like,
We
you know,
should.
people get tattoos. We get them with Dan Campbell jerseys.
We should just do like a weekend at Ford Field. We should do
By
that
the
next
way-
year for a game, preseason game.
By the way, I'll be at the Fantasy Football Expo. So, hey, we're 1/3 of the way there to getting Dan Campbell jerseys in Detroit.
Let's talk business on air. I've been emailed about the expo a few times about going there as like a featured thing again. Should we do it as a company or just go as guests?
I think we could as a company. Ironically, it's my mom's birthday around that week, so we're gonna go to Cleveland anyways. So I was like,
Oh.
you guys have fun in Cleveland. I'm jetting the hour Saturday, Sunday to Canton. Deuces. So, you know, as long as I'm not the only one there the one year I can, I'd be happy.
We should just send
Let us know
Trevor.
in the comments. What should we do?
Just send Trevor as a representative.
I'll be the
That's right.
correspondent. I'll just have a microphone. Nobody filming or listening to me. Like normal.
I'm sure we'll be there in one way or another. We'll figure out if we want to go like sell shit or do panels or whatever it is again.
We'll just run Oklahoma drills.
We could.
Janet can bring her class up. Run Oklahoma
Yeah,
drills.
field trip. That's right. I could reserve like a 30-minute block in one of the rooms, and we could just run Oklahoma drills. They can't tell us no.
It's like the one of those conference rooms are like it's like foreign waters. Anything goes.
That's right.
Yeah. Everybody's like,
Paid my
why is
money.
nobody in the other conference rooms? They go into ours. It's people placing bets on Oklahoma drills.
It'll be electric. You can't say it's not.
And we'll all have our Dan Campbell jerseys. It's going to be who wins, Dan Campbell or Dan Campbell.
Oh, if we all go with Dan Campbell jerseys. You can wear a Jared Goff one if you need to, Luke. As long as it's
No.
Lions, that's fine.
It's got to be Jamal if it's going to be Lions.
Jamal
No,
would be
Jared
good.
Goff.
I do want a Kabinda jersey too. I just wanted to represent because he'd get like $1 from it, and he deserves that $1. I might have to do that too. Anything else about the playoffs? I can't believe the Lions
What
aren't
about the
dead.
Fantasy Football Expo? We got to talk about that too.
Anything else about that? I don't care. I have nothing. So I am so torn about this Packers game, and I guess we'll talk about it more in 10-ish minutes on Lombardi sweep. Obviously, we'll be breaking down that game. Man, I'm hyping it up to be a good game. I need it to be a good game. I need to see some good football because last weekend, the best game was the Raiders game. The Raiders-Bengals game. That sucked.
Mm-hmm. I see when we just talked about losing fan interest because teams play the same teams over again. I wish that we were playing like the Rams or the Cardinals. I guess we played the Cardinals a couple times in the playoffs, but someone other than the fucking 49ers or the Giants
I know.
or the Cowboys.
I'd rather play the Lions. Like, seriously, I think that would be legitimately a better matchup. Because the Lions would just be guns blazing, and the Packers would be like, what's going on here?
Once Dan Campbell gets into the playoffs, it's going to be a nightmare for 13 other teams. It's going to be...
Can you imagine Dan Campbell at home in the playoffs? How spiced that place is going to be?
I can barely imagine Dan Campbell in the playoffs. I hope that's even bigger. Okay, this was the Wednesday show, the Flurry Sports show, whatever we want to call it. We'll be
Fantasy
back
Football
in...
Expo show.
Sure. We'll be back in 10-ish minutes with Lombardi Sweep breaking down Packers 49ers, giving our predictions for that, even though we kind of just did. Maybe I'll switch. I'm not sure yet. And it could be an honest switch, so I'm not even pretending. But yeah, we'll be back in like 10 minutes. Later.
Peace.